Welcome everyone to another episode of Money Magnum's Picks, and today I am going to give you my NFL futures and predictions for the 2025-2026 season. But before we get started, hit the like and subscribe. I'm trying to build on this channel, so I welcome your support. For the few people that have supported me on this channel, thank you for your support. Hopefully I welcome your continued support, and let's get into it. I am going to give you the defensive and the offensive rookies of the year, as well as defensive and offensive player of the year, coach of the year, MVP, and comeback player of the year, as well as my division winners, who is going to make the playoffs, the conference winners, and the Super Bowl pick. I just want to let you guys know that all of these odds are based on the Caesars odds that I like to play. I like to play Caesars. I do like to do MGM bet, but like I said, a lot of these bets from Caesars, they're also subject to change. So I just want to make you aware of that. So let's get into it right away. Defensive Rookie of the Year, where Abdul Carter is the favorite at plus 250, followed by Jalen Walker at plus 750, Travis Hunter at plus 1,000, Mikael Williams at plus 1,000, and Mason Grant at plus 1,200. I really like Abdul Carter at plus 250. He's clearly the favorite. There's a reason he's the favorite. I've loved him in preseason. He looks really active, as well as Jalen Walker. So I would take those two off the bat if I'm making a bet today. So I would definitely take those two. Travis Hunter, you just don't know how many snaps he's going to get defensively as well as offensively. And I think that he's going to be very overused. Who knows how much he's going to be used at Jacksonville. So I'm going to just go with Abdul Carter or Jalen Walker for Defensive Rookie of the Year. All right, let's get to the Offensive Rookie of the Year, where Ashton Jeanty is the favorite at plus 300, followed by Cam Ward, also at plus 300, Omarion Hampton, plus 900, Travis Hunter at plus 1,000. So I'm just giving you the top four right there. Obviously, there's some other ones down below with wider odds. I like Ashton Jeanty from the beginning. Yes, I am a Raiders fan. I am a little biased, just a full disclosure. But I think if Ashton Jeanty gets plenty of carries and that offensive line holds well, I think he'd rush for 1,000 yards. And if I think he can rush for 1,000 yards, I think he can get it. Cam Ward has had a pretty good preseason, but I think that the weight of the Tennessee Titans in that division and probably that schedule, I don't know if it'll hold for him to do that great. But there are actually two bigger risks that I would take as far as this category. One is Emeka Egbuka from Tampa Bay, the wide receiver from Tampa Bay at plus 1,600, and Tyler Warren at plus 2,200, the rookie tight end from Indianapolis. I think those guys are going to be used very often. And for Egbuka, if I'm saying that name right, I think he's going to get a lot of opportunity. He actually was the leading receiver in terms of statistics at Ohio State. So I would take, if I'm taking a long shot, I would take one of those two as a long shot. But I like Ashton Jeanty as the favorite. If he gets plenty of carries and he's very explosive and that Raiders offensive line is tight, I think he's going to get it. So I would take one of those three for Offensive Rookie of the Year. All right, let's get into Defensive Player of the Year, where TJ Watt obviously is the favorite at plus 700, followed by Myles Garrett at plus 700. Aiden Hutchinson, who's coming back from a broken leg, at plus 750. Micah Parsons at plus 800. Max Crosby at plus 900. I'll tell you what, though, any one of these five are very deserving of possibly winning the Defensive Player of the Year. Micah Parsons has got a contract situation, so I don't know how that's going to look like. Myles Garrett on a Browns team that's rebuilding, I don't know. TJ Watt always is going to be in the top three, so that could be a safe bet. But I really like, not only I like Max Crosby for the risk, I actually like Aiden Hutchinson here because the Lions are going to go through a change where they lost both coordinators, and I think that the catalyst of that defense, I think Aiden Hutchinson will be strongly beneficial to that defense and to the progress of that team. So I really like Aiden Hutchinson at plus 750. Obviously, my bias for the Raiders, I'll put in some money for Max Crosby. But the long shot you should consider is Jared Verse at plus 1,600 for the Rams, who was recently the Rookie of the Year last year, and I think he can improve. And I think the Rams defense is pretty good. So I like Jared Verse also as a long shot at plus 1,600. So I would take Aiden Hutchinson, obviously Max Crosby for a little bit of money, and Jarrett Verse as a long shot. You know, if you want to be safe and close to the vet, you can go with TJ Watt because he's in his prime. But one of those three plus TJ Watt as a safe bet is what I would go with for Defensive Player of the Year. All right, let's move on to the Offensive Player of the Year, where Saquon Barkley, who is the reigning Offensive Player of the Year from last year, is the favorite at plus 525, followed by Jamar Chase at plus 900, Jahmyr Gibbs at plus 1,000, Derrick Henry at plus 1,100, and Justin Jefferson at plus 1,400. I mean, you could take Saquon Barkley. It's very difficult for a player, in my opinion, to win Offensive Player of the Year twice in one year, especially that I just don't think that Saquon Barkley would duplicate the same exact performance, although they have a good offensive line and everybody's coming back. And if everybody's healthy, they'll be okay. But the guy that I would pick, that I would put my money on, is Jamar Chase, simply because I think Joe Burrow is going to have a really good season. He came off last season, that second half of that season, looking great, looking MVP-like. And I think the beneficiary of that, if it continues this year, will be Jamar Chase. And I could see him put up a lot of yards. I could see him putting up a lot of touchdowns. I like Jamar Chase. My second bet would probably be Jahmyr Gibbs, but that's a little iffy because he's going to be sharing, carries with Montgomery, so we don't know how much of the offense he's going to carry because they have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's also going to demand balls, coming his way. So we'll see about that. And Derrick Henry, who was pretty close, who finished in the top three in Offensive Player of the Year last year. Derrick Henry, I don't know if he could duplicate exactly what he did, but it looks very, very possible. But I really, really like Jamar Chase here. If Joe Burrow continues from last season, how he finished in that second half, and if it rolls over to this season, I think Jamar Chase is the bet that I would go with for Offensive Player of the Year. All right, let's go to Comeback Player of the Year, where Dak Prescott is the favorite at plus 275, followed by Aiden Hutchinson at plus 300, Christian McCaffrey also at plus 300, Trevor Lawrence at plus 500. So it's very easy to pick Dak Prescott, and I would pick Dak Prescott because he's the quarterback. He came off a bad year. He was hurt, but now he's coming back, with Pickens as an extra wide receiver weapon. I think, obviously, CeeDee Lamb, who led the league in receptions, I mean, he's definitely going to be pretty good as well. And they got Ferguson, who they got signed. So I like Dak Prescott a lot. And I like Aiden Hutchinson a lot, because if I pick Aiden Hutchinson to be the Defensive Player of the Year, he's going to win the Comeback Player of the Year as well. So he's got to get both. So I can't see one without the other. So I would take one of those two. Obviously, a long shot, my boy Max Crosby at plus 2,500. I mean, I'll throw maybe like a few bucks there, but I would go with Dak Prescott and Aiden Hutchinson for sure. Christian McCaffrey, until I see him healthy on the field, I don't know. I mean, you could take a risk there, but in my opinion, Aiden Hutchinson, Dak Prescott, and then another long shot that I forgot to mention, Daniel Jones, who was just recently named QB1 on Indianapolis. He definitely had lost his job as the New York Giants quarterback. If he comes back, and the Indianapolis Colts are a pretty good team and have a chance to make the playoffs, I think if he leads them to the playoffs, he's definitely the biggest long shot, in my opinion, that I would put money on to win Comeback Player of the Year. I would go with that. All right, moving on to Coach of the Year. Ben Johnson is the favorite, who recently got the job as the Bears coach at plus 650, followed by Mike Vrabel of the New England Patriots at plus 700, Liam Cohen at plus 1,300. I like Ben Johnson. I'm very high on the Bears this season. I think the Bears could turn it around this season. The Patriots actually have a shot of also turning it around, but I really like Ben Johnson in this bet right here. I would definitely go with Ben Johnson of the Bears at plus 650. I think he could definitely turn it around. I think Caleb Williams can turn around his season, and I think we're going to see improvement out of Caleb Williams, and we're going to see exactly the footprint and the fingerprint of this coach on this offense. So I really like the Bears. They have a lot of good weapons, and Caleb Williams should be able to improve under this coach. I like Ben Johnson for sure. Long shots, Jim Harbaugh at plus 1,600. The Chargers, I think, could improve themselves. And then Pete Carroll, for my Raiders at plus 1,600. Who knows? He just might be a miracle worker and get the Raiders in playoff contention. If that's possible, I think that's another long shot bet. But Ben Johnson for sure, go with him for Coach of the Year. All right, last but not least, obviously probably the most important that a lot of people like to bet, that is the MVP of the season, where Lamar Jackson is the favorite at plus 550, followed by Josh Allen at plus 600, Joe Burrow at plus 600, Patrick Mahomes at plus 650, Jaden Daniels at plus 900. I'm gonna tell you what though, it's very difficult for a player to repeat as MVP. So I'm gonna actually exclude Josh Allen. I could be proven wrong, but I'm gonna just historically go with that. Lamar Jackson makes sense to be the favorite, but I actually like Joe Burrow because of what I saw at the end of last season and what I said earlier about Jamar Chase winning Offensive Player of the Year. In order for that to happen, Joe Burrow, I think, has got to put MVP numbers. And if Jamar Chase is going to be the beneficiary of that, I believe Joe Burrow is going to win the MVP. So I like him. A hedge, Patrick Mahomes at plus 650 after being humiliated in the Super Bowl. I don't think he's going to go out like that. I think he's going to come back with a fury. So I could see the Kansas City Chiefs, who nobody is talking about right now, and Patrick Mahomes, it's definitely going to, I think, is going to make a statement. And the long shot, Jaden Daniels for the value. The Commanders, who had a really good season last year, was one game away of getting to the Super Bowl, and Jaden Daniels, was huge in that. I think he's going to improve. He's got the weapons. He's got MVP-like characteristics. So I like Jaden Daniels at plus 900 as well. I would go with those three: Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Jaden Daniels, any one of those three to MVP. I would actually hedge putting money on those three and just exclude myself from Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, because I think those are the three that I just mentioned might have a better shot and they have more to prove. So I like that as my NFL MVP this year. All right, so there you have it. Those are your players' futures. Once again, like and subscribe if you like the video. Hopefully it's been helpful so far, and we are going to continue. Let's go into the divisions, where I'm going to pick each division winner and who I think might have a shot at the playoffs. Let's start with the NFC and the NFC North, where the Lions are favored at plus 150. The Packers follow at plus 270. The Vikings follow at plus 290. And the Bears are at the bottom at plus 525. I like the Lions in this one, despite losing both of their coordinators, offensive and defensive coordinators, to other jobs. I like the Lions to win. I think the Lions, coming off a huge season last year, probably their best that I'd ever seen in my lifetime. I think they can get to 11 wins. I think the division will be tough, but I think the Lions will win it. And in this division, I also like the Packers to fight for a playoff spot, but I am really high on the Bears. Don't sleep on the Bears, because the Bears, with Ben Johnson as their new coach, I believe that offense will improve. There are offensive weapons on that team. So I think at least they'll have a shot, a sniff of contending for the playoff. So I think that the Lions will win the division, but I think the Bears are going to fight, and I think the Packers are going to fight. The Vikings are just a bit of a mystery to me. You don't know what J.J. McCarthy's going to be. He just came off an injury, and they just lost Sam Darnold. So I honestly do not know where the Vikings are at. But I like the Bears in the division, and I like the Lions in the division. And then the Packers obviously are going to compete. So I'm taking the Bears in this division. All right, moving on to the NFC South, where the Bucs are favored at plus 100, followed by the Falcons at plus 210, the Panthers at plus 400, and the Saints at plus 1600. You could eliminate the Saints from this equation. They're totally rebuilding. And then the Panthers, they're still kind of rebuilding as well. So I would discount both of them as far as a playoff run. I think it's going to come down to the Bucs and the Falcons in this one. I like the Bucs to win the division, although plus 210 for the Falcons to win the division is not a bad value. So I would definitely, if you want to take that risk, I could see anyone taking that risk. I would probably take that risk, but I like the Bucs for sure, because I think the Bucs are still loaded. Baker Mayfield is playing, I think, at the peak of his career at the moment. He's, somewhat everybody's saying he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFC. I tend to agree with that, and I think he's going to continue to play well. You still got Mike Evans there. You still got Godwin, and you got Bucky Irving as now probably your new RB1. And he's added like a new weapon to his like bag, and that is this pass catching, ability that I saw in the preseason. So I really like the Bucs. The Falcons, on the other hand, are going to go with Michael Penix Jr. So, I believe he'll do well. They got a lot of weapons as well. They've also upgraded as far as defensively. but I like the Bucks in this division, and I think the Falcons have a shot of making the playoffs this season. All right, moving on to the NFC East, where the Eagles are heavily favored at minus 160 to win the division, followed by the Commanders at plus 230, the Cowboys at plus 675, and the Giants at plus 3,000. You could eliminate the Giants from this equation. They're rebuilding. They're not going to make the playoffs, in my opinion, much less win the division. The Cowboys are just too volatile. They just got a contract situation with Micah Parsons where he wants to be traded. There's more drama in Dallas than anything else. So the concentration is in football. Although Dak Prescott can have a comeback year and compete for comeback player of the year, I think they'll compete, but I just don't see them in the playoffs. I like the Commanders and the Eagles in the division. I like the Eagles to win the division, and I like the Commanders to get in. I think the Commanders are going to compete with the Eagles, but I think the Eagles are just more solid on both sides of the football, and I like Jalen Hurts. So I like the Eagles to win the division, followed by the Commanders to get in the playoffs. The Cowboys are out. All right, and finally the NFC West, where the 49ers are slight favors to win the division at plus 160, followed by the Rams at plus 175, the Cardinals at plus 425, and then the Seahawks at plus 575. I think the Seahawks are rebuilding at this moment. I mean, you don't even know what they are. They could be good. They will be competitive, but I just don't see them in the playoffs, much less win the division. Same thing with the Cardinals. I think they'll compete. I think they'll be disruptors, but unfortunately, I just don't see them winning the division as well. I like the 49ers as a slight favorite, especially if they're fully healthy and Christian McCaffrey is fully healthy. That offensive line is healthy. So I actually like the 49ers in this one. The Rams, same thing. I like them to get in the playoffs, especially it rides on Matthew Stafford. And if he's totally healthy from the issue from his back, they haven't really played him at all during the preseason and very little practice, if any, during the preseason. And they're kind of, nobody really knows what's going on with that hurt back. But we'll see what happens. I think if the Rams are fully healthy, they'll definitely compete for the division. You could take either one of those two, but I like the 49ers slightly with the Rams getting in the playoffs in this division. All right, so those are my NFC picks. Let's move on to the AFC. Let's go to the AFC North, where the Ravens are the favorite at minus 170, followed by the Bengals at plus 280, and the Steelers at plus 510, and then the Browns at plus 3,500. I think you can eliminate the Browns from this equation. They're totally in a full rebuild right now, so I don't see playoff aspirations at all, much less the division. The Steelers, you kind of don't know what's going on because Aaron Rodgers has not taken a snap for the Steelers in the preseason, and he's at the time of this video, before their last preseason game that they're going to play, he's not even gonna play the last preseason game, so you don't even know what that's about. So the Steelers, you kind of don't know what that's about. I think they'll compete, but I think they're going to miss the playoffs this season. I'm going to go with the Bengals and the Ravens to fight for the division, with the Ravens winning the division, but the Bengals a slight second in that division. But I would like the Bengals at a good value at 280 because if I believe Joe Burrow will be the MVP and Jamar Chase will be the offensive player of the year, then I have to equate that the Bengals will be successful in this division and be successful as a Super Bowl contender. So taking them at plus 280 isn't as bad as you think. So I would think that the Ravens would win the division, but I wouldn't mind taking the risk on the Bengals winning the division at plus 280, and I like them both to make the playoffs this season. All right, moving on to the AFC South, where the Texans are the favorite at minus 105, followed by the Jaguars at plus 310, the Colts at plus 360, and then the Titans at plus 800. I think the Titans are going to be eliminated from this equation. I think Cam Ward will be good, but he'll go through some growing pains, and the Jaguars are going to compete, but I just think they're going to slightly miss the playoffs. I really like the Colts in this division, and I like the Texans in this division. I think the Texans are the favorite. I mean, I wouldn't mind putting money on them to win the division, but I really like the Colts at plus 360 because if Daniel Jones can take this talented team, because I believe the Colts are a talented team, if he could direct this team to seriously compete and I have them possibly making the playoffs, I think he could win comeback player of the year. And if he wins comeback player of the year and he shows that on this team, I think he could win the division, compete seriously for the division. So I like the Colts as the high risk, but I have them making the playoffs, and I have the Texans winning the division in this one. So I have the Texans and the Colts as far as the AFC South is concerned. All right, moving on to the AFC East, where the Bills are heavily favored at minus 330, followed by the Patriots at plus 625, the Dolphins at plus 700, and the Jets at plus 1800. I mean, this is a no-brainer. I think the Bills are going to run away with this division, and depending on their schedule, I think they're going to have one of the best records in the AFC. So, no doubt, the Bills at minus 330, it's going to happen, but it's not a really big value, but you have to put $330 just to win $100, but the Bills are going to wrap up this division. The Patriots will be better, but they're just not going to compete in this division, and who knows if they can compete for a playoff spot. But I think Drake May is going to have a better season. He's definitely going to improve. The Dolphins, you kind of don't know what's going on there. That's a little iffy. And, you know, the coach is on the hot seat, so we don't know what's going to go on there. And the Jets are just simply rebuilding. So the Bills, it's no doubt. I see the Bills as the only team in this division even making the playoff. I don't see any of the other three even competing for a wild card here. So just take the Bills. If you're really going to put more money into it, take the Bills to win the division. It's a no-brainer. And finally, moving on to the AFC West, where the Chiefs are the favorite at minus 115, followed by the Chargers at plus 320, the Broncos at plus 325, and the Raiders at plus 1200. Look, dude, I am a Raiders fan, but they're not going to win the division. I'm just hoping they even compete for a playoff spot. But, you know, as a long shot, maybe they can compete for a playoff spot. The Chiefs are going to win the division. They're going to come back with a fury. They were embarrassed in the Super Bowl. I think Pat Mahomes is going to have an MVP-type season, and nobody's talking about them right now. So I like the Chiefs to win the division. Although the Chargers and the Broncos are going to compete seriously, because I think the Broncos have one of the best defenses, if not the best defense in the league. And Bo Nix was really, really good as a rookie. I think he's going to improve. I think Sean Payton has got this team in the right direction. Jim Harbaugh is definitely going to be steering the Chargers in the right direction. They got a lot of talent. So, I mean, obviously, I'm going to root for my Raiders to try to make the playoffs. But, you know, just to be an even keel and be smart, you take the Chiefs with a possibility of the Chargers or the Broncos competing for a playoff spot. And that's pretty obvious. So that is my pick for the AFC West. All right, so there you have it. Those are my divisional picks in each division. I do have some other bets that I'd like to share with you. It's a yes and no whether they make the playoffs. There's some pretty good value out there. Let me start with the Falcons getting in the playoffs, plus 145. That's not bad. The Bears getting in the playoffs, plus 195. The Colts getting in the playoffs, plus 200. And then obviously my Raiders getting in the playoffs at plus 300. The best value to me, I like the Falcons, I like the Bears and the Colts. Obviously the Raiders are the long shot to get in the playoffs. But those are the best yes values in terms of getting in the playoffs. Now, the best values for not getting in the playoffs, the Broncos, if they don't make the playoffs, pays out at plus 115, the Chargers at plus 110, and the Packers at plus 110. So if you're taking a risk on the three teams that possibly will not make the playoffs for a good value, I'd take the Broncos, the Chargers, and the Packers not to get in the playoffs, and those pay out at a really decent value if you want to take the risk on that. So I just wanted to let you know by sharing those playoff picks as well. All right, so let me get into the NFC and AFC conference winners, where first let's start with the NFC, where the Eagles are the favorite at plus 350, the Lions at plus 500, the 49ers at plus 800, the Rams at plus 850, and the Commanders at plus 950. I just don't see the Eagles repeating as good as they are. I think they'll go deep in the playoffs, but I just don't see an NFL repeat champion here. So I am going to go with the Lions at plus 500, the 49ers at plus 800, and then the long shot with the best risk and the best value, in my opinion, are the Commanders at plus 950, only because I believe Jaden Daniels will elevate his level of play. If he plays at an MVP level, I think the Commanders have a shot. The 49ers, I believe if they're fully healthy, I believe they can get back to the Super Bowl. And then the Lions, I think they have a window here that they can get to their first Super Bowl in franchise history. So I like them. I'm not going to take the Eagles to get to the Super Bowl, even if they have a possibility to repeat as champions, because they bring everybody back. I would take those three. Obviously, the Rams are an outside shot depending on Matthew Stafford, but I am going to go with the Lions, 49ers, and the Commanders in the NFC. And then moving on to the AFC, the Bills are favored at plus 300, followed by the Ravens at plus 340, the Chiefs at plus 400, and the Bengals at plus 900. Like I said, the best risk for the value is the Bengals at plus 900, only because I believe Joe Burrow is going to have a great season. And if I believe he's an MVP candidate and he can win the MVP along with Jamar Chase, earlier in this video I said Offensive Player of the Year, then I have to believe the Bengals can go all the way and get into the Super Bowl. So at plus 900, I would take that. The only other two that I would hedge, I would take the Bills at plus 330. I think it's their time. And then the Ravens, I think it could be their time. So one of those three, I would go Bills, Ravens, or Bengals in the AFC. All right, so last but not least, let's get into that Super Bowl pick where the Bills are the favorite at plus 625, the Eagles at plus 700, the Ravens at plus 700, the Chiefs at plus 800, the Lions at plus 1100, the 49ers at plus 1500, and the Commanders and the Bengals are both at 21 at plus 2000. I'll tell you what, though, you can go either Bills, Ravens to win the whole thing. I think one of them is their time. I think the winner is going to come from the AFC. So if I'm thinking Bills, Ravens, or Bengals, I would take one of them to win the whole thing. You know, the Lions, I don't know, it's a long shot. I could pick them to get into the Super Bowl, but maybe not win it. But I like the AFC to win it. So I like the Bills, I like the Ravens, and I like the Bengals. I mean, if you had to give me one team right now, I'm just going to take the Bills. Let's just say the Bills to win the whole thing, to finally get it done. So taking them, obviously, in the AFC against, let's say, the Lions. Let's say I'll take the Lions in the NFC and the Bills winning it. I could see that. So you got me on tape. So Bills, Lions, with the Bills winning the Super Bowl. So if I'm right, you can refer back to this video on this day and that hopefully I was correct. But that's all of my picks for the 2025-2026 NFL season. Please like and subscribe to the video. Please support the channel. I am going to be doing a lot of shorts and a lot of picks every week. I will try to bring out more content. Hopefully you guys support. I want to build up the channel to where it's reasonable, so a lot of people have that interest to watch me and tell somebody else about the channel so they can join, and we would love to have you. I love your support. I welcome your support. So without further ado, till next time, we'll see you.